In today's video, Republicans are trying to sabotage Pete Hegseth.
Okay, it doesn't sound on your answer that you've gotten to a yes.
I think you are right.
Also, Morning Joe calls Doge a scam.
But this is a scam, so they need to just stop pretending.
And Senator John Fetterman gives The View a reality check.
America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases.
Okay, it doesn't sound on your answer that you've gotten to a yes. If I'm wrong about that, correct me. And if that is the case, it sounds to me as if the hearing will be critical for his nomination. Am I right about that?
I think you are right. I think for a number of our senators, they want to make sure that any allegations have been cleared, and that's why we have to have a very thorough vetting process. And that's why I was happy to sit down with Pete and have that conversation with him yesterday. So again, all I will say at this time is that we did have a very thorough discussion over a number of those issues, and the vetting will continue, I am certain, through the next month or so until we approach that hearing date.
And he has.
So would you support the release of that?
Do you think you can convince Joni Ernst?
You on the issue of alcohol?
Oh, we've had great conversations about who I am and what I believe, and frankly, the man I am today, because of my faith in my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and my incredible wife, Jenny, right here. I'm a different man than I was years ago. And that's a redemption story that I think a lot of Americans appreciate. And I know from fellow vets that I've spent time with, they resonate with that as well. You fight, you go do tough things in tough places on behalf of your country. And sometimes that changes you a little bit. And by the grace of God and my Lord and Savior, I had an opportunity to come on up out of it and do great things with great veterans organizations that fought for vets, that fought for reform at the VA and for war fighters, and at the Fox News Channel to advocate for those very same causes. And I'm proud of what I fought for. I'm not going to back down from them one bit. I will answer all of these senators' questions, but this will not be a process tried in the media. I don't answer to anyone in this group, none of you, not to that camera at all. I answer to President Trump, who received 76 million votes on behalf and a mandate for change. I answer to the 100 senators who are part of this process and those in the committee. And I answer to my Lord and Savior and my wife and my family. I'm proud to be here. And as long as Donald Trump wants me in this fight, I'm going to be standing right here in this fight, fighting to bring our Pentagon back to what it needs to be.
What have your conversations on?
What do you make of the rumors that DeSantis and others might be considered?
Spoke to Trump this morning, just a few minutes ago. Supports us fully.
How are the meetings go?
Great.
How did the meeting with Ernst go?
It was constructive, candid. It was great.
Did she bring up the allegations?
Sorry, man. I apologize.
Did she bring up women in the military? Women serving in the military?
You said that you would never back down. If Trump asked you to back down,
I'm here because of Donald Trump. If he didn't want me to be here, then I wouldn't be.
Back it up. Hold on a second. Wait, what is your objection then? That is military cabal doublespeak. And for the great patriots in Iowa, I hope you are listening carefully because you are not being represented well by Senator Ernst. Basically, she is defending a deep state at the Department of Defense. However, hold on a second, she won't commit to vote for Pete Hegseth, but do you know who she did vote for? And she wasn't alone. Let's put 109 up on screen. This is Joni Ernst's boy. This is Joni Ernst's man right there. Boom, center stage. Lloyd Austin. Joni Ernst voted for that man. Wearing 3 masks. Walking through, I think it was the Philippines. Lloyd Austin, the secretary under Joe Biden. There's so much that we can spend on Lloyd Austin, but do you remember when he was hospitalized and his chief of staff didn't tell the president for several days? And of course, he also oversaw purging thousands of experienced troops to pursue a politically motivated vaccine mandate, one of which, where Joni Ernst did not fight the fact that tens of thousands of troops got kicked out of the military for not wanting to take the COVID shot. That is Joni Ernst.
Reporter said that Mar-a-Lago, President-elect Trump is considering the possibility of Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, to be the Secretary of Defense nominee. That would mean that Pete Hegseth would no longer be. Have you heard from any senators about that possible switch?
Well, I think, Dana, the important thing is the president is still committed to the nominees that he's put forward. There's a lot, as you know, swirl around this process. There always is side conversations that go on. But, you know, at the end of the day, these nominees need to have the opportunity to make their case. I'm meeting later today, I think it's been reported, with Pete Hegseth, as are many of my colleagues. And I think the readouts from these meetings are he's very smart, and he's got, you know, great experience, obviously, as a combat veteran. So we're going to give him the chance to make his argument, make his case. And clearly, he's going to have to answer some hard questions, which he is, based on the reports I'm getting from the meetings he's attended so far. But that is part of our process. And under advice and consent in the Constitution, our responsibility as the Senate is to give him that process and to determine, based upon confirmation hearing and background search and things like that, their qualifications for the office.
But this is a scam unless they're going to slash Social Security and Medicare and Veterans Affairs. They're never going to get to $2 trillion, so they need to just stop pretending.
You know, Joe, I feel like Vanna White. I'm just turning letters up here, and you're actually Pat Sajak telling people how it is.
It makes me so mad. It's so disingenuous.
I'm happy to be your letter guy. But you said it exactly right, Joe. This is a completely disingenuous, unrealistic, ridiculous idea.
Oh, poor Joe Scarborough. I remember when he was a conservative. You know, when he was a conservative Republican, he actually voted against expanding Medicare into Medicare Part D, this extra part to make Medicare bigger, because he thought it might bankrupt the country. Yep. So there was a time when he actually was a thoughtful person, but no longer. Now, there is a sliver of a truth in the sense that, yes, entitlements are a lot of the spending, but to say entitlements are a lot of the spending, therefore we're not going to look at waste, is the excuse we hear all the time. Oh, we're not going to look at this spending because if you get rid of all waste, it won't balance the budget. Well, why don't we start by getting rid of the $750,000 that was spent feeding cocaine to Japanese quail to see if they were more sexually promiscuous on cocaine? Maybe Joe would agree with getting at least that, get rid of that.
There is a lot of downsizing that Musk and Ramaswamy can get done, even without Congress, from having President-elect Trump use executive orders to axe regulations to gutting waste from federal spending. But when it comes to the dollars and cents that the federal government has at their fingertips to spend, that is up to Congress, and they are getting some backup from unlikely places. Senator Bernie Sanders saying Elon Musk is right. There are things that need to be chopped, and other Democrats are joining in too.
Ultimately, I just think that there's not a single American who thinks government's perfect, that, you know, there's not anything that can't be changed. So I think Democrats should embrace government efficiency.
I mean, I don't know why it's controversial to eliminate waste. I think anybody could support making our government more efficient and saving whatever money that we can.
And a big part of Musk and Ramaswamy's plan is to reduce the overall size of the federal workforce. Musk this morning mentioning a report that basically says if you don't count security guards and you don't count maintenance people, less than 1% of federal workers show up into the office in person every day, 40 hours a week. That's something they want to change, and they don't think a lot of people will stick around to show up in person to work, so they think that that would significantly reduce the number of workers off the bat.
And I do like to point out the sort of ironic hypocrisy of, you know, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy. They like to rail against the unelected bureaucrats making these decisions. But Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy themselves are unelected, and they are going to be in this very important advisory role. But they put out, you know, some statements about the agencies and what they plan to cut. They wrote this Wall Street Journal opinion piece. They want to cut $500 billion in annual spending. Some of the agencies and the programs they've specifically mentioned are the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. That is a very important funder to NPR, to National Public Radio. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which was created in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis. International organizations, progressive groups like Planned Parenthood, and there's elements of plenty of other agencies that they plan to cut. I've talked to people in the Department of Labor, EPA, all of them are girding themselves essentially for what they expect to be massive cuts. Now, there is a question, because you can't just cut agencies because they are created by acts of Congress, so you would need Congress in order to cut these agencies as well.
Well, I didn't hear anything that was really a concern. In fact, I'm encouraged by the list that they put up here. Let's take a look. Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Yes, we should definitely cut that. Why do we need PBS, who clearly pushes propaganda 24/7? Yeah, let's get rid of them. Now, the last bullet point, which I really am attracted to, progressive groups like Planned Parenthood, yeah, we need to cut them too, okay? Because if any department or agency or program who's really been responsible for the murdering of millions of babies in our country, Planned Parenthood would be at the top of the list, right? So yeah, let's get rid of them.
We take over in January, and until then, the big government Democrats are still in charge, and they're spending money, in our view, recklessly. And so, yes, we've had a lot of discussions over the last couple of days about what our authority would be to claw some of that back and to stop it. It's a serious challenge, and we need to stop it and expose what's happening. That's what this effort will be about going forward. There is an enormous amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in the government. And I think everyone knows that intuitively. And so the efforts here, both with our subcommittees that are being created here and with the DOGE effort itself, will be to explore that, to investigate it, and lay it bare for the American people to see. I think that's how we'll begin to bring about the change that we all need. So this is an ongoing effort. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, some labor unions are already fighting back. They've already signed contracts to try and get this, that they could be able to work from home, things like that. Your reaction to that?
Well, there was a report that came out today. I don't know if you all have seen it, but someone did a little survey of how many federal employees are actually working in the office. By one estimate, it may be about 1% if you don't count the security personnel that are covering these buildings. That is absurd. And it's not something the American people would stand for. And so one of the first things that I think you'll see is a demand from the new administration and from all of us in Congress that federal workers return to their desks and get back to the work that they're supposed to be doing. I think that is common sense.
Most everybody seems to be in favor of the work of DOGE, even though a lot of people don't really understand what DOGE is trying to do. For example, many elected officials are saying how wonderful it is that we have a commission that will get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, reduce government costs, and cut the budget deficit. All right? That's true to some extent. But I think the real purpose of DOGE is a vast undertaking to stop the unelected regulatory state that has been misgoverning America for far too long. As Steve Forbes put it, and Steve said this, 3 years ago, socialist-type central planning in the modern age operates through the hundreds of thousands of unelected bureaucrats who exercise their vast power over the economy through over 220 regulatory agencies. That's right, we looked it up, 220. The regulatory state.
If there's anyone who could take a situation like reducing our federal government, paring it back, and actually doing the right thing here, I believe it's Donald Trump. And I do think people are so excited about this. Look, over the past several years, our country has watched as our money has gone overseas to fight wars that, we don't even involve ourselves in and don't want to be involved in. Watched as we've spent, I think, Elon himself said the other day, $150 billion a year on illegal immigrants who have come here to this country. This is something the people are desperate to see happen. And I actually believe this is the time. If things happen in the way that I think so many of us are hopeful to see happen, I believe we are upon the most transformational period in our country's history, basically since our inception. Donald Trump calls it the golden age of America, but it starts with DOGE. It starts with giving the taxpayers, more for their money and not wasteful spending, not the fraud, not the abuse. I actually believe we're going to see some incredible things happen.
Okay, it is his son, after all, and people do have sympathy for that. But a lot of people are angry with him about it. What do you say?
Oh, well, I think it's undeniable that the case against Hunter Biden was really politically motivated, but I also think it's true that the trial in New York for Trump that was political as well too. Now it's that, and in both cases, I think a pardon is appropriate, and I really think collectively, America's confidence in these kinds of institutions have been damaged by these kinds of cases, and we cannot allow these kinds of institutions to be weaponized against our political opponents. And it's very clear both trials were politically motivated and weaponized that on the other side.
They'll say that about the J6 people too, though, right? That's what they're going to say on the other side. That is weaponized also.
I'm not referring to that. I'm talking about the New York trial, and now the Democrats on our side there were some that were gleeful, calling it like now he's a convicted felon and those things, and now for our party we were talking about criminal justice, and we are now talking about second chances, and now all of a sudden now you're like, well, he's a convicted felon and all these things. And now clearly, again, both of those trials, the Hunter Biden one and the trial in New York for Trump, that was politically motivated, and those kinds of charges would have never been brought unless one side could realize that they could weaponize that.
Do you think preemptive pardons are necessary for people like yourself, other folks that Dr. Anthony Fauci, Adam Schiff, Liz Cheney, I mean, that could be targeted by a Kash Patel-led FBI?
I mean, it's certainly something to consider. I guess my question is, I have not done anything wrong. I know that. And I know that many of us who have just spoken the truth, all we're doing is speaking the truth. But in today's environment, in terms of what's to come under the Trump administration, I think that's something that we're all thinking about and wondering what's to come. And I think I am a prime example of what's to come when I've already gotten a threatening letter by someone like Kash Patel, who we know is a loyalist and a henchman for Donald Trump.
All right.
I worked with Kash in the White House. I was Vice President Mike Pence's counterterrorism advisor. So I had to coordinate with Kash a lot. Kash Patel is a delusional liar. Let me just be very clear about that. And he would lie about intelligence. He would lie about making things up on operations. I think, there is a little bit of fear here from people where they know that someone like Kash Patel is fully capable of just doing partisan investigations, whatever it takes. It will be insane if he becomes the director of the FBI. And I fear for the law enforcement personnel there who are going to have to navigate this. And quite honestly, when I look at Kash Patel in combination with what is Pam Bondi going to do if she gets in as AG, is that top cover for him? I mean, these are all the things that concern me when I see all of these names being proposed for all of these different positions, because this is a very real risk and to the detriment of Americans, to be clear.
I knew y'all were in town. I couldn't let it go without coming by to say hello and to say thank you to everyone here, all of these extraordinary leaders. I wanted to come by and say happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, whatever you may celebrate. But most important, let's make sure we celebrate each other.
There's a little bit of controversy about that podcast because you did it. Do you know about this?
No, what?
Because in D.C., this interview happened in D.C.
Yeah.
In a hotel.
Yeah, not in a hotel. It was like a random house.
It was like random house. But apparently, you can tell me, they spent, meaning the Harris campaign spent like $100,000.
I did see that.
You know about this?
It's hilarious.
To build the studio.
Yeah, that's not true.
Not true. To make it look like it was the studio that you used in L.A.
My studio that is gorgeous in Los Angeles doesn't even cost six figures. So I don't know how cardboard walls could cost six figures, but.
But do you think they did that? I mean, you saw
Absolutely not. With love to them. Oh my God, it was gorgeous, but it wasn't that nice. It wasn't like gorgeous marble. No, that was not six figures.